Ready. Go for it.
All right. Well, also, if you don't mind making me co-host, I appreciate it.
I
Yeah.
think I
Oh, you
did.
already have. You did. Thank you. Guys, welcome to Wealth Wednesday. Jody Humphrey here, and excited to have all of you here with our great partners, Zach and Kimberly Odie, helping always coordinate this with the rest of our superstar leaders. Tim O'Rourke, excited to hear from him. We got some great things happening. First of all, this is a huge week for the company. If you happen to be in Atlanta and you're around tonight, they've we got a Latino Bop taking place at the home office. It's going to be headed up by Herson, Lariva, and also Rafa Garcia. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And even though you won't even know what Rafa's saying, he does the best bop I think I've ever seen. It's awesome, awesome energy. It's actually what's coming to. But those guys will be there. So if you have anybody in the Latino marketplace, send them over tonight. But also this weekend, as you probably know, or hopefully you know, well, actually this Thursday and Friday our um, we have our RMD Academy for those of you that are RMDs. Many of you are in town. So hopefully you'll register for that. That is completely sold out. It's beyond sold out, actually. So, I know we're excited to see so many of you. But this Saturday we have RMD boot camp, and this is our Field Builders boot camp. And I'm so excited about this, guys. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be very fundamental. There's a lot of preparations gone into this. We're going to lay out some things, and I am going to announce that we are going to Zoom it. I've debated it, gone back and forth, but I know there's some people that just want to see it and that are not going to be here. That we will Zoom it for them. It'll be on our Zoom code. I'll put that on here and send that out. But man, I am so excited about this event. I mean, like really, really excited about the what we have there, and excited to have all of our generals in town going to be at that event. So that'll be at the home office, 9 to 5 on Saturday. It'll be a packed day. Lunch will be provided. I think we're gonna have a little pizza party going during the day there, and it's going to be fantastic. So that's going to be something to I think it's going to be. We got it duplicatable in a way that now that we can have this what we're going to show you, have it every 6 to 8 weeks and really do some serious damage. We've got the first presentation for the sale, and for our product presentation. We got it down where it's totally turnkeyed. We got everything in place, and we're really excited about that. And so I think it's going to be fantastic. There's some other things I'm really excited about. The company continues to grow, in the spirit of just showing you what our philosophy is. Where's no one else like HGI? There's all kinds of contenders and pretenders, but really there isn't anybody like us. And just to show you what I'm talking about is, just from our leadership, just from the leaders that we have, and the depth of our leadership is just phenomenal. And in us being the only ones that are completely tied in with the system, the LFS system, which is what built all this in the first place. And then same thing along the line is that we have products like no other. As you know, we've got every life insurance product. We're really excited, that we're just finishing up the inks going on the paper with a great new product provider this week. That's there's a percentage of the people, just a small percentage, that are in kind of an upper market, a sophisticated market, that they use the whole infinity banking thing and debt reduction and all these things. But there's some products, and in that world, there's a great debate within the infinity banking and to be your own bank, that kind of a thing, as to whether IUL is the best way to do it or whole life's the best way to do it. What's awesome is we have the best IULs in the world, and we're excited to announce that we have Lafayette Life now that will be coming on board, which is the number one ranked whole life product that people who use that product uses. It just shows you that it doesn't matter. When we sit down with a client, whatever they need, whatever's best for them, we don't care. And I know Kathy's on here, and Kathy's excited about this because she's actually used that product before and very fired up about it. And, Kathy, you want to make any comments on that real quick?
I'm trying to unmute myself there, Jody.
Sure.
Sorry.
You're fine. Yes.
Well, I worked with Lafayette Life in combination with a software platform very much like the one that Mauricio is building right now. And we use the combination to help people accelerate debt elimination. And it was huge. And I've worked with a number of people that was kind of their flagship product that then opened the door for them to talk to people about all of their other financial needs. And so it's just one more thing that we're going to have, that we can talk to people and approach them maybe from a different angle. And the other thing is, I've worked with people in my former company who always were very frustrated that we didn't have solutions. We talked about that people needed to like reduce debt, right? But we didn't have solutions for that. So Lafayette Life is going to be a great tool for us, just as a great whole life product, but also in conjunction with the debt calculator that Mauricio is working on. And we're just going to be unstoppable because we've got everything under the HDI umbrella, and super excited you got that done, Jody. Very
You
excited.
bet. No, it's awesome. And, I really appreciate Tim helping with that. We worked that together. But guys, listen, it just shows you just the fact that we have the arsenal. I mean, if you come in here, you may very well be a person that believes buy term invest the difference is the best thing every single time. Guess what? Knock yourself out. We have incredible terms. And with our new platform, you can go invest the difference within the wealth format system platform that we have. All the way up to every IUL that is just phenomenal products, all the way up to these other products. And I just love it. Listen, I look at it as a recruiting tool. I mean, that's all I look at all these tools. And I just want you to look at things that way as you go forward and as we go into that. So without any further ado, let's get right into the great Tim O'Rourke. We have Tim's talks for today. A lot of fantastic things going, and then we're going to hear from Zach Odie, who's going to dovetail right off of that. So Tim, thanks for all that you do. Can't wait to be with you the next couple of days, and thanks. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. Hey, everybody. These are, as I always say every week, this is a pretty amazing times what we're going through right now. We've got a new administration in there. They're wielding the executive powers to do a lot of things in the government right now. The big one, as we all watch, is tariffs. And I'm sure you're watching all this in the news, but I watched this piece by Howard Lutnick, who's the Commerce Secretary, and also Besnet, who's the Secretary of the Treasury. And it's interesting, if you go back in history, I don't know if everybody knows this, but we financed wars in the U.S. back Civil War, different wars, but basically the onset of a permanent federal tax took place on February 3rd, 1913. Okay, and as you've heard from Jody and Kimberly and Zach and many people here in our organization, we talk about the two biggest impediments to your growth, as far as compounding growth, growing your money, are taxes and inflation. So let's talk about taxes for a second. So prior to 1913, there were no taxes in America. America was a very profitable country. We had no debt. We raised all of our money back then on tariffs. I don't think a lot of people knew this. I'll be honest with you. I really didn't know that tariffs played that big of a role. So tariffs are, as you all know, we've talked about this before, tariffs are something that countries charge. And so to kind of play back and understand how tariffs have played in the past 100 years or so. As America fought different wars, we helped the countries that we defeated in wars, World War I, World War II, Korean War, etc., Vietnam. We allowed them to add tariffs onto the products that we would sell. So a lot of times China, Japan, Europe, the UK, France would all add tariffs onto our products that they would buy from us. And that was a way to help them raise money and help them be competitive with the products we made, because we were manufacturing country back then. And that switch really happened is China took over manufacturing as one of the lead providers in the world. And as you can see, that we're trying to, according to this administration, we're trying to equalize tariffs now and get things back rebalanced. Well, the rest of the world obviously doesn't like this, and so we're seeing this fight going on, this struggle on trade wars. And so if you understand kind of the history of all this and how tariffs came about, I think it gives you a little bit of an appreciation of the history of what's happened here. And so now we've got a current administration that's using the T word that is spooking the markets. And so I believe we're already in a recession. Call it whatever you want. We're basically in a recession right now. But the other part of this is interesting, is that when you look at all the other little things going on behind the scenes, we're actually doing quite well on a number of things. In other words, unemployment is pretty stable. We're at 4.1, 4.2% unemployment. So people have got jobs. It's not like 08, 09 when everything was topsy-turvy. So you've got that going for us, which is a powerful undertow. We still have high debt. So we're $2 trillion in the hole as far as the amount of revenue we're bringing in and the amount of spending going out. So is it possible to balance the budget? So this is the thought process of the current administration: is can they cut the excess spending, the waste spending, by $1 trillion? Good luck. They think they can. They think that they can cut out the waste by $1 trillion. I hope they can. I think, it's like Social Security. I'm on Social Security, so I get paid a monthly check every month, and they're saying that the Social Security fund will run out of the excess money that's in it, and that they'll have to cut back the payments that they make sometime in the middle 2035 range. So what if they could cut off all the waste and make payments to everybody on here that's, let's say, Electra, your Social Security get paid when you're 65, and you get full payment at 65, which is you're young. It's going to be a long way off. If they could cut off the waste and they could pay you full payment by then, so Social Security will still be there. It's because everybody's paying into it. And so if they could cut the waste out and sustain Social Security for another 50 years at its current pace, I think that would be huge, in my opinion. So that's one area that I think has to be addressed, as far as how do we shore up the government and the excess or wasteful spending. That, any organization that large, there has to be waste. I mean, everybody agrees on that. So I think that's one of the good things. And then how do they raise capital in order to cover the other $1 trillion of excess spending? So there's a number of ideas they're trying to figure out, how they raise another $1 trillion to offset that excess spending. So this is one of the things that in the next 2 to 3 years, if they can do all this, then I think we're going to see the markets respond to it positively. But in the short term, I think there are too many crazy things going on right now that are upsetting the stock market. So I think we're going to see a recession this year. It's not going to be a bad one, but it's going to help us. It helps our market because we bring tools to bear for people that we can help them plan around taxes and inflation, the two big impediments that I think we all feel challenged on. And inflation is not going away, with oil prices still up there. The President Trump has said that he's going to hit everybody with a 25% tariff charge if anybody buys oil from Venezuela. Guess who that is? China is the biggest purchaser of oil in the world from Venezuela. So I think China is, they already know that they're in our crosshairs on tariffs. So they're going to fight back with tariffs on us. But we are the consuming country of the world. We have a GDP of $29 trillion. Get a hold of that number, okay? $29 trillion. Out of that $29 trillion, we consume in this country $20 trillion annually. So we are the luxury consumers of the world. We buy things from every country around the world. So that, in other words, the government here knows that we wield a lot of power. Our consumer base is the wealthiest consumer base in the world. And so that's the negotiating tool that they're using. But in the short term, I think it's going to cause some tremendous volatility in the markets. And I think we're going to see that play out. So that's my comments for today, Jody and Kimberly and Zach. So any questions, I'm glad to answer it or turn it back to you.
Hey, thank you, Tim. Appreciate so much everything that you do. And guys, I love the fact that he pointed out that this is some of the same things that have taken place in the past. And if you go back and look at history, all these, the graphs of all the wars, rumors of wars, tax, code changing, all these things, it's cyclical. Things tend to repeat themselves. So all's well. Let's keep going forward. We'll turn the time now over to Zach Odie for our conversation. And Zach, I know as we go into this conversation, you have had the opportunity to talk a good bit with Paul Dietrich, lately, and I know you're going to share some of that. And then also, if you would start out with, if somebody's within, I've heard you say this, and I love how you say it. If someone's within 10 years of retirement, they really need to be getting out of the market and being smart with that. Kind of articulate that a little bit and then get into what you have prepared from your conversation with Paul.
Yeah, a good friend of mine talks about, and we have a great presentation we've been working on that talks about keeping the emotions out of money, right? When you get emotions tied up into your financial decisions, a lot of times you make the wrong one. Really, I think if you're holding on to an aggressive stance right now in your market positions, and you're within 10 years of needing to use that money for income in retirement, you're the guy at the table in Vegas that's literally gambling with your retirement. You're gambling with what you've created or what you've gotten. Yes, we've had some, and I'll address this in a second. It's been a couple good years in the market, and a lot of things. It's very tempting to feel like you're on a roll, right? There's really no such thing, guys. I'm sorry, it's random, it's chance. Right now, everything we see points to recession, just like Tim said. So with the product set that we have, especially in some of the income plays that we have through annuities from multiple different providers, there's no way, even if the market continued to run like it's been doing or continued to do well, you could beat the income guarantees from some of the fixed indexed annuity products that we have. So if you have a client or if you yourself are within 10 years of needing to use your retirement assets for income, it's time. It's time to talk about it. It's time to, we've seen this. We've been in this rodeo. We started in 2002, shortly after the dot-com collapse, and we rode through the mortgage collapse in 2008. Everything about what we see points to a correction. It's one of those things. So if you have a client that is within 10 years of retirement, they would be very, very hard pressed to beat the guarantees from some of the annuity products for an income stream that we have out there. I know that I'm very familiar with Nationwide. I think North American's got something that's very similar that will give your income guarantee for life a major shot in the arm. And I know Kimberly spent a lot of time talking about the 4% rule on this call and the 25 rule of 25, those things where you can figure out what that number is. And we ran some illustrations for some of our clients recently, and it took that number from 4% to 8%. It basically doubled the amount of income, and it guaranteed it to last for the rest of their life, based on those products. And those are, you can use the words guarantee. You can use the things like that because they're in writing, guaranteed to pay out for the rest of that client's life. And if they die before they're out of money, then what's left in that product goes straight to their beneficiaries. So yes, definitely know where we are, know the cyclical nature of the market, and know that if you look at our graph that you've all probably seen that talks about the power of indexing, it only takes one correction and the red line never catches back up to the green line. And if you don't know which one I'm talking about, maybe we can show you that graph here later. But if you look at a 25 to 30 year span, all it takes is one market correction, and the people invested in the market don't catch back up to the people that had zero as their hero, and they had that floor where they could lock in their gains and continue to go up. So it's a great conversation to have. It's not doomsday. It's not anything except for, and I explain this to people all the time. We don't call it a market collapse. We don't call it anything like that. We call it a correction, because ultimately markets have to correct in order for us to go back and we have to get back to the values that are accurate. People say, well, why do you think it's going to correct? And this is where I'll go in a little bit about what I've talked to Paul about. I mentioned the .com situation back in the early 2000s, late 90s, where .com was all brand new, right? You've got mail. And some of you remember that. Some of you weren't even born then. I don't know. But when all this stuff was happening, everybody got into .com. It was the future of the world. And you can look back at history, and Hubert was front and center into the .com world. And we were right there watching it and with him at some of those things. But what happens in those things is that ultimately you have the boom of infusion of capital, and then the cream rises to the top, and your Apples and your Microsofts and the people that have really positioned themselves correctly take the market share over, right? So you've got some startups that get bought out by competition at a cheap dollar figure because they run out of money to invest, or because they're just like everybody else. And that sector starts to shrink back in. You'll see, if you look at market returns, that the NASDAQ is having some trouble right now, which is where most of the tech stocks are. So everything is going to retract. And that is what a recession is. And that's what a market correction brings with it. I'll tell you the why about that. I did talk to Paul yesterday for about a half an hour, just to kind of get his feel. I've had a lot of client calls, a lot of questions, and I love to hear his perspective on things. And I definitely respect his history and what he's done in those two downfalls that I've talked about. For those of you that don't know, one of them, the market was down 40%. I think he was down like 6%. So it wasn't nearly like the rest of the market. The next one, the market was down almost 50%, and he was up 7%. So what he's gotten very good at is understanding the underlying economic signals that bring on these downturns. And so, and that's why we use him at WFS to help with our models and to help with those kind of things. But he said that all of his recession triggers hit 2 years ago. You guys think about this. So everything that would make him go conservative or get out of equities hit 2 years ago. And he said those signals have not changed since. And what happened there, like Jody did talk about the cyclical nature and how history repeats itself. But what happened there is we were going into a recession, some because of COVID, some because it was time. We've had the longest bull market in history, you guys that understand that. And it has drawn that cycle way out. When we were going into recession, all of a sudden, our federal government printed, because we can talk about how and why and why this works this way, but we created $14 trillion with a T out of thin air and pumped it into the economy in the form of stimulus dollars. And that didn't stop the recession, it just slowed it, right? And so now what we're seeing is that we're with tariffs and those kind of things, which all these things require explanation and understanding of how they impact things. But now what we're seeing is yesterday, the Consumer Confidence Index came out, which is the #1 trigger of a signal of a recession coming. And it's at a 12-year low. And it's 4 months in a row where that consumer confidence index has continued to go down, which means the average American is starting to feel the belts tightening. They're starting to feel things changing in their bank accounts, in their cash flow, whatever that situation is. And when the consumer confidence goes down, they stop spending. They start saving more. They start thinking twice about going out to dinner. You'll probably see some restaurants in the areas where you live. I was talking to Kimberly about this Facebook post earlier today, where another restaurant in our small town here is going out of business after decades, because people are starting to go to the grocery store, and they're starting to cook at home because of that consumer confidence. So knowing that this is happening, it's not to scare people. It's to be informed, right? So the good thing about it is to let the market correct, but be protected from that downside, to be able to let the market go back to where it's on a solid foundation. And when it starts to climb, your money immediately starts to climb. And guys, that's the story we tell with the IULs and with the indexed annuities. That indexing strategy is exactly that. So if I had several $100,000 in an old 401k right now, or in a brokerage account, and I knew I needed to turn that into an income stream, I would be looking at getting it over to that safe platform, get it to a safe place where you have potential for growth, right? But you have a guarantee against downside loss. I'm one of the big players in our professional money management platform that we have here at HGI, and I believe that money in the market is a good thing. And I believe that we're setting that up for success. And for those of you that are clients of WFS, we got the guy driving the ship. We're in a good spot, but we have no downside protection other than Paul's knowledge and his expertise. But all the paperwork you sign talks about that. So what we want to know is what pot of money is where, and that's why what we do and what we're teaching you guys this Saturday about the 3 different roads to run on with who you're talking to, knowing how to identify who they are, where they are in their financial life, and what they need is going to be powerful. And so for those of you that are registered for RMD Academy, I'm excited about seeing you guys there. For those of you that are coming over for our boot camp, you're going to get some great stuff. But know that all of this research from Tim and from Paul and from what Hubert has done, and what to put us in the right place with the right providers that offer what's needed at exactly the right time in the market. It's not a fluke, guys. We know that. We know the story. So you're here. Now you just got to let your market know, and let the people that are around you know what you do.
Explain to them what he told you about tariffs yesterday, and
Yeah, so when you think about tariffs, they're basically a sales tax. They're a sales tax on other countries, and they ultimately apply back and trickle down to the end consumer, right? So the anticipation in some of these rooms that Paul has been in is that if all these tariffs and this little trade war, if you will, come into fruition, that we might see in some areas a 15 to 20% increase in price. What that is, though, basically it's a sales tax. What's interesting about sales tax, and a lot of us don't like it, though, is it doesn't matter who earned the money. It doesn't matter what their citizenship status is, or if they're paying into the IRS. Everybody that buys goods or sells goods is going to pay that tariff. They're going to pay that sales tax. So it takes it fairly across. So if you have wealthy people that are buying more things that are luxurious items and they're spending more money, they're going to pay a larger share. But you also have the other side of that coin, which in this country, 50% of the people pay 100% of the tax. So there are about 50% of the people that file income tax. Yeah. About 50% of the people that file income tax returns every year don't have to pay tax. They don't make enough money, or they have credits or whatever else that get them below that. When it comes to a tariff, this is where the inflationary piece kicks in, is that everybody pays the sales tax. It's not an income tax. It's a luxury tax, a tax on things that you buy. So interesting ways to look at that. And then I appreciate Tim bringing the history of where our revenue came from before it was tariffs in the country. So we're in not uncharted territory, but we're in territory that hasn't been charted in quite a while. So I will tell you that, it's not a political statement. It's that the market needed to correct either way, regardless. And it would have corrected regardless of who won the election. They just approach things in a very different way. I know that that the debt ceiling is one of those things that you hear a lot about, and there's a lot of back and forth in Congress about whether they raise that. And I know one side of the aisle doesn't want to raise the debt ceiling because they don't want to borrow any more money. They want to balance the budget. The other side is thinking about it from we've got to pay all of our bills, which we do. And that's what the Republican senators and Congress people have told Donald Trump, is that if he can't show where the money's coming from, which is where a lot of this other stuff is, he's trying to find the money to balance the budget and not raise the debt ceiling. So long story short, there are so many pieces to all this stuff that's going on out there that's interesting. And if you want to know about it, read about it. And, don't read, political jargon, read stuff that's going to teach you about the terms and about how they affect the economy, so that you can be articulate if your potential clients or potential reps ask these questions. But also, if you're not somebody that wants to know all that or needs to know all that, I want you to rest assured that we have people that are looking at all these things. We have people that are putting us in the timing situation to offer the best products at the perfect time. And last time we went through this back in 2008, I think the indexed annuity boom was so big at that point in time. And all you got to do is step in front of it. All you got to do is open your mouth.
I was just going to say, right now is that boom.
It
Zero
is.
question. And just to kind of give you a real life example, had a client phone call, I feel like it was last week. It might have been the week before, but within the last 2 weeks. And my recommendation was a pot of money that they had go into an indexed annuity, not all of their money, but that piece of it, go into an indexed annuity, because in the next 10 years, they were going to retire. They still have their current 401ks and all of that. And it was about $235,000. I met with them 2 nights ago, and he said, well, that was going to be our plan, but now our 235 is down to 210, and we'll want to wait until it comes back. And I was like, no, you don't, because it's probably going to go down significantly more before it actually comes back up. So it is literally happening in real time for people. I know one of our reps recently said that, her husband lost 100,000 in his 401k in the last few months. Like, it is happening right now at this moment. So open your mouth, say something, have those conversations. And if you have anybody sitting on the fence, now is the time to push them, because they are seeing that movement and feeling that movement. And they're not quite as confident as they've been over the last few years that, everything's pie in the sky. And that's one of the things that Paul always says. You hear him say it at every conference that we're in. In a recession and a market downturn, when people start losing money in their investment accounts, advisors that are good advisors go get a lot of new clients because they're angry, right? When somebody loses money, whether it's their advisor's fault or not, they're looking for someone to blame. And they are ready to have a different conversation with somebody else because now they're ready to listen. This is that time, I promise you, to have the money about how their accounts are performing, because they will move it either to an indexed annuity to protect it, or to WFS so they have better active money management. And, what did Paul say as far as his performance so far this year? So the first quarter of this year, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, and this is me talking not about our model specifically, because we didn't go back and look at that, but Paul obviously advises on a large portion of money outside of WFS. And he said for the first quarter of 2025, he's up 7% and the S&P 500 is down 6%. So that means that he is 13% above the S&P 500's performance for the first quarter of 25. That's the guy I want managing my money going into a recession. And this is what we're talking about. We've got, it's time for the sideline, non-institutional, do-it-yourself investor. And we saw this, Jody, you talk about the Janus funds back in the VUL days, where you could be the dumbest person on the block and you could throw a dart at the market and you'd make 12 to 15%, right? Some 20%. That time is going away right now. If you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be expensive. And I don't mean know all the details about the market. I mean, work with people that know what they're doing. And that's the story you need to be talking to folks about out there in the world is, hey, you need to be talking to experts.
Let me break this down on a couple of fundamentals, guys. as you go out and you tell your story, you recruit and build, you let that take you to what markets it takes you. Okay. You sit down with people. If someone, and we're going to be teaching very specifically about this Saturday at the boot camp, it's going to be awesome. But if people have not accumulated money, they're going to need a basic package. They just need to get covered and be protected and be ready to start doing something in the future. But then the older someone gets, then they need to get into a defensive posture, a protection posture. But there's camps, there's people that even if they do need an annuity, are not going to get an annuity for whatever their thought process is. They're just going to believe one way. Okay, for people that have accumulated money, want money in a liquid, fairly liquid position or extremely liquid position, and believe in the power of the market, that's where active money management comes into play.
Yeah.
Now, on that side of the house, we have a relationship with Paul Dietrich. And by the way, just for the record, Paul Dietrich is not with the company he was with a little while back, B. Riley. He is with Fairfax. Is that correct?
Wedbush is the investment bank out of Los Angeles. They're 85-year-old bank, and he has merged his business with their business. I don't really know exactly the proper terms to somebody acquired somebody.
But his portfolio is named Fairfax.
But it's Fairfax, which is Paul's portfolio, and that's the investment bank that it's processing with.
I wanted to clarify that just because I've heard a couple of bops and people mention Paul Dietrich and they still mention B. Riley. He's not there. Just if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. If you do, adjust it. But I want you to understand something. Paul Dietrich is an active money manager extraordinaire. He's one of the most renowned minds in the money business. If you go study him, and we'll get you some information, we'll put it in the chat so that you really understand the power of Paul. Paul is a defensive active money manager, and he's fantastic. He's a major asset. He's a great ally to ACI. And he's fantastic. Any questions on this discussion? Any questions on what he talked about earlier about the flight to safety? I knew LaShawn, I knew I could count on you to come through here. I said, LaShawn's going to come alive here. Hey, LaShawn.
Hi, Jody. How you doing? Good afternoon,
Awesome.
everybody. Quick question, Zach and Kimberly. Does a person have complete control over their IRA or Roth IRA if they're under 59 and a half? I know they don't for the 401k, but is the IRA or the Roth IRA in the same bucket with that?
You mean as far as just
rolling over
the ability to make decisions? If they're not attached, if it's not a qualified account attached to a current employer, so if it's an old 401k from somewhere that they left,
right,
they can do whatever they want with that, and we can help them with that. If it's an IRA, then they've already left the 401k or they started the account as an IRA. We can help them with that.
Same thing with a Roth.
Same thing with a Roth.
If it's
now there are Roth 401ks that are attached. Now there are a lot of 401k companies that are giving you a Roth option. So if it has the letters 401k after it, they have to be separated from that employer in order for us to do anything about it.
So the key term is if it's attached to an employer.
A current employer.
Okay. Okay. Current employer.
Yes, but an IRA will not be attached to a current employer.
Correct.
Only a 401k, and it could be a Roth 401k or a traditional 401k. You can speak in a minute. Just kidding. Just to clear, I just want to be really clear on your answers, right? Do they have control over it? In an IRA, they have control over the investments inside that account, how it's invested, right? Based on whatever custodian they're with. But they still are subject to the same rules on an IRA or a Roth or a 401k of the government. You can't touch it before 59 and a half. You have to access it, I think, by 73 in RMDs. If you pull it too early, it's going to be taxed and penalized. A Roth is only, you can access just your money that you've put in, but anything over than that, other than, earlier than 59 and a half is tax and penalty and things like that. So those rules apply, but can you move someone's IRA to another platform? Yes, absolutely. You can roll it over.
Okay. So the correct term should have been, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, LaShawn.
Yeah, so the correct term I should have used was rollover, not have control. So thanks for
Yeah.
clarifying that. And last thing, if you have time, if no one else have questions, Kim, you and I talked about a person that has a 401k, it's current 401k, and they're tied, but they're looking at their money just, turning into a 201k. Are there any other options because they're under 59 and a half? They can't roll it over. Any other options you
I can
suggest?
tell you that we're not investment other than Zach, we're not investment advisors, so we cannot give advice on their securities accounts, their current 401k. They
Okay.
should reach out to their 401k custodian and ask those questions. Are there more conservative ways to invest inside that 401k? Yes.
Okay.
But we can't advise them on that. We could say you need to call them and ask how to go conservative right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And
They need to quit their job, come to work with us, and roll it over.
Correct. We'll take it.
there's a fine line between if you're investing in the market, and I think there's a timing thing where you've heard a lot of people say, I've already lost all this money. If I pull out of the market now and the market comes back, it's going to, yes, there's a certain amount of truth to that, but that loss has not happened yet, right? So I would tell them that, and you can easily, anybody that has a 401k attached to your current employer, if you want that to be in a conservative position, you can call that company and say, I want to be ultra conservative. And they have to move that. They have to make those changes. So you have control of that inside there. The one thing where I'd say is,
But
if
we
you've
as
got,
advisors,
well,
we can't manage their accounts.
right.
Okay.
But I do think that if you encourage them to pay attention to it, that is a big deal.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, most people don't pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So just by educating them to educate themselves, then they can go, be much more aware of it. One other thing I want to do while we're here, because I want to get real fundamental for a second, okay? And Zach made a great point. I don't want to fly past it. A loss isn't a loss until it's realized, and even a gain's not a gain until it's realized, meaning it's on paper. Just remember that, okay? But I want to quickly go through something because I know that there are people on here that this isn't deep stuff, but it's further down the pike than just basics. I want you to understand the difference between qualified money and non-qualified. Just that, because I know there's people on this call that don't know what that means, okay? Because I made the comment that going into Paul's accounts, you have a great liquidity factor. If you have money in his account and you liquidate it, I believe you can get it in 48 hours in most cases. However, if it's qualified money, all the laws, penalties, and all that apply to it. So the fact you can liquidate does not mean you can liquidate and avoid the things that are going to get you. Okay, so that's one thing. But it is great money, great place for people to put money that's non-qualified money that they want to have somewhere that has some growth. They feel safe about it, but that they can't have liquidity. That's important. Okay. Now then, if you don't mind, Zach, because I love how you articulate these things. Basic one-on-one, the difference between qualified money and non-qualified money. And people need to understand somebody can't move qualified money into a non-qualified situation. We don't do that. I mean, we don't want to move a 401k into an IUL. I mean, I understand the math, and there may be times that works, but as a company, that's not going to be what we teach from the pulpit. So Zach, if you don't mind going over there for a second.
So first of all, at its core, the difference between qualified money and non-qualified money is qualified money has not had taxes paid on it yet. So it's money that's come out of a paycheck or come from a situation where it went and you got a tax break that year on your income. So that's the 401ks, the 403bs, the IRAs. So it's pre-tax money going into that account, growing tax deferred, right? And then when you access it down the road, you're going to pay ordinary income tax on that money. So that's qualified money. That's what most people do with their retirement funds. It's still the number one thing as the 401k. Non-qualified money means that it's money that has come from a place where tax has already been paid on it. So that means that I took money got paid in my paycheck or whatever else. The government got their piece and I got what's left. That's non-qualified. So I can take that and invest it into an IUL. I can invest that into a managed money account, whatever I do, and I'm not going to defer taxation on that, right? I've already been paid taxes, but here's a big kicker. Now, this is when you said keep it simple. That's the simple. Either I haven't paid tax on it yet, and that everything that comes out of that account is going to be taxed as ordinary income down the road. But what a lot of people don't realize also is that even if I'm not talking about an IUL, I'm just talking about non-qualified funds that I have in a brokerage account. Any gains that I have on that are going to be taxed as capital gains, not as income. And if you understand the difference between short-term and long-term capital gains taxes and income that's coming out, a lot of people misunderstand. They think that their stock portfolio inside their 401k is a capital gain. Every dollar you earn inside a qualified account will be taxed at your ordinary income rate upon its withdrawal.
Just put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Massive point, people. I mean, I want you to understand that, okay? That's a big disadvantage for you to understand. Does anybody have a question on what he just said? There's no bad questions. If you don't understand it, it's your chance to understand it. Just in my Macon, Georgia way, money inside of a qualified plan doesn't get the advantages of other money in terms of the taxation of the growth. It's catching no breaks. Every penny. See, listen, when you take money out of a qualified plan, it is as if you made that income that year. Just bottom line. So sorry, Zach.
No, and then the last thing I will say is talking about converting qualified money into non-qualified money. We can do Roth conversions inside our accounts at WFS. So, but what people do need to understand on a Roth conversion, you are changing qualified funds in an IRA into Roth IRA funds. So the same Roth IRA rules apply, but you can do that and pay the income tax on that, but not the penalty, right? You are going to have to pay income tax, so we can do that. But we don't have a plan where you can just take money from an IRA, put it in a Roth, and immediately turn around and take it out and fund a life insurance policy. Roth IRAs have to, when you do a conversion, there's seasoning time frames that have to be done. There's a lot of things that need to be done. That might be like Jody was talking about, that long distance roadmap, right, on the other side, where we're putting together a full plan. So, and if you've listened to Mauricio, one of the things that some people will do is they'll Roth convert up to a next tax bracket, right? And so they don't bump themselves up to the next tax bracket on all their income, but they start moving that money from qualified to non-qualified positions because they believe taxes are going to go up. We can put together all of those types of plans for your people, so they don't have to go somewhere else. But like Jody said, if you have somebody and you're talking about an IUL and all they have is in qualified funds, and they're wanting to max fund it up front and do all those kind of things, there's no bridge that covers that gap, not directly. So I might have just totally muddied the waters on that, but
okay, there's no other way. And guys, listen, when you're out, all roads lead through this. You do a basic presentation of what you're going to get nailed on Saturday, exactly how to do it. Then from there, you read the room. You either do a simple dime and close the sale, do a basic F&A, do some business, or get a little bit advanced. When you look down and you see what they have, and you know Kimberly's two questions, you know them by heart. Do you have, what's monthly money and what's lump sum money? And that's what we do. You see lump sum money. Oh, they've got 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. Well, then all this is applicable. Short of that, none of what we said today really comes into play. So that's it. That's all you got to know. And as you get into that, the better market you are, you'll come back to this. So, James, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I just, not really a question, more just again, I think today's training obviously is fantastic. I mean, there's no question annuities are hot right now. It is the hottest thing out there, securing people's retirement. I think, my background coming from the employee benefits world, I can speak firsthand. people with their benefits through their employer, whether it's a 401k, their health insurance, their supplementals, their dental, their vision, all of that stuff, it all kind of goes hand in hand. They don't put any thought into any of that, guys. And that's a big point right there. People put their money, they just know they got a pre-tax dollar going into a 401k, and that's all they know. They know nothing about the design and structure of that 401k plan through their employer. And what's even scarier is that they don't have control over it. And unless they speak up, unless they say something, they may lose that money. It may not be in secured accounts within that 401k. It may not be, less risky than what the accounts that are in, however it's currently structured. So I think that's a big war cry right there, that if we don't open our mouths and we don't educate and just give some information, give some education, even if we can't help them, they're going to love us for doing what we did. They're going to go and make that call to that 401k administrator, or I forget the word that's used, Kimberly. I think it was the custodian, the 401k custodian, to be able to make those changes within that plan. But beyond that, I think that also opens up the door of opportunity of, what are your parents doing? What are your aunt and uncle doing? What are your grandparents doing right now to secure their retirements? And that could lead to referrals into other areas that we may not be able to help the employee, but we can help the family members of that employee. So I think that was just a great call today.
I want to clarify
One other
something.
thing. Let me make one other thing real quick, Zach. And I have heard someone that I met that was with Primerica, that I was a pretty sharp guy. Sometimes people think that if their money's with a corporate, with a 401k, that there's some kind of safety factor, or that it's guaranteed or something. There's none. It's still market driven. Zach?
Yeah. So what I was going to say, and I meant to say this earlier, is that part of talking and in the world that we're talking about and getting people interested in sitting down and talking to you is getting good at describing products and their benefits without naming that product. I think a lot of people will go out and say, hey, you really need to go into an annuity. And annuity, the term, has been around for generations, and it has, with some people, especially older people, has a very bad stigma for multiple reasons. So, but if you could describe that to somebody by saying, what if there was a way that we could position you where you could participate in the upsides of the market, but be guaranteed against the downsides? Would that interest you? I'm not saying, would you sit down and let me put all your money in an annuity? I love these fixed indexed annuities with this bonus and this guarantee. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, would you be interested in possibly putting this somewhere where you could potentially participate in the upsides of the market, but be protected against the downsides? And with an IUL, the conversation is very similar. It's, what if you could put in after-tax dollars? It could grow tax deferred, but you could access it tax-free on the back end, kind of like a Roth, but with no limitations. And they're like, okay, let's talk. I didn't say IUL because I don't want them going home and hitting the Google button, right? Because every single financial planner out there in the world that's trying to make money off assets under management, right now they're in defense mode. They're tearing down IULs. They're tearing down indexed annuities. They're scaring people. And we don't need to give them that. We want them to sit down with us. So we'll talk about that again also Saturday. But remember that when you go slinging around titles and terms from products with people that are not as informed, you want to be the one to give them that third-party validation. You want to be the ones to give them the information that you want them to have. You don't want to turn them over to Google to research what you've just spewed on them, because they'll find what they're looking for when they go out there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, Zach, it's important to have conversations with people and let them know, hey, don't get hung up in what it's called. Let's get hung up in what it does. Yeah. And I think that's a easy thing that you can say to clients to kind of put their defenses down a little bit, especially clients that, like you talk about, are older clients that have been burned by annuities in the past and whatnot. And so, yeah, I love that. Talk conceptual instead of specific product.
The thing is the fact that we can do both is huge. Because you could sit down and say, most people who come at this, they just sell this or they sell this. And I understand you being defensive, but we're unique because I'm able to we can send off this stuff to the security side, whether you get your license or when you get your license or until you get your license, send it to Zach and whoever else we have that we're going to use, or go the annuity route. Oh man, that puts you in a position of, great comfort to people. And I think that's a real big point as to what we do.
Yes, absolutely.
I think Kathy's got some questions in the text.
James?
I think Kathy's got some questions in the text thread. for the chat.
Lindsay, did you have a question?
She just asked
Oh.
Zach to repeat the thing he said about IULs when you're talking to
Yeah.
a.
So I just tell people that there's a way to put your money into a vehicle. Let me think about this. After tax dollars, it grows tax deferred, but you can access it tax free. And then I just say it's kind of like a Roth, but with no limitations from, the government. And they may say, oh, is this an IUL? Because it's out there now. A lot of people have heard about it. They've seen TikTok videos or whatever else and say, yeah, it might be. We have other ones too, but we do use insurance products sometimes. I still don't commit to them. I'm going to say, let's sit down and see what we need. And I think the final comment that I would make about what Jody said and what a lot of people have said, and then we'll let Jody wrap it up, is being able to tell people ultimately at HGI, we can offer you whatever you want. What we're going to tell you is what we recommend, but ultimately we can do whatever you want.
I have a Zoom.
And that's the long and the short of it. I think that's what Jody was kind of saying, is that takes the pressure off of you being a salesperson because you got it all. Now, if they like you, they're going to buy whatever they want from you. They're not going to buy it from somebody else. So.
Yeah, my 2 cents worth to end this, and this is just my opinion as a leader, is that 60 to 75% of you guys, if this conversation comes up, you should get somebody else to help you and split it. That's my opinion. For most people, and I'm speaking for Jody Humphrey, if I get off and I know someone is of this caliber, I'm going to bring in someone who really knows their stuff on this because I want to do that job for them. Now, you may be the one who wants to learn all that. That's fine. But I'm just telling you, the fact that you don't, you're fine. We're here to build a company. We're here to build a team. We're here to go build a business for long term. So just keep that in mind as you go through. So thanks, guys. Appreciate everyone. Thanks all of
See you
you for being
Saturday.
here.
Yep.
You bet. It's going to be an exciting week.